The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon, scorched espresso, and the stress of people avoiding their real lives. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Melissa Hart sat curled in the very last booth, slouching like it was a sport. She had intentionally dressed like someone who did not want to be noticed. An oversized sweatshirt from the "don't ask what year this is" era, jeans with an old food stain, hair shoved into a messy bun that had definitely lost the fight, and absolutely no makeup. This was her dating strategy now: look awful, feel safe. If a guy walked away at first glance? Perfect. If he stayed? Maybe he was worth a second look. She checked her phone again. 5 minutes, no message. Tracy, her best friend and relentless matchmaker, had arranged this blind date. Melissa had only agreed to stop Tracy's Olympic-level nagging. After a broken engagement, an ex who robbed her blind, and 3 years of romantic disasters, Melissa wasn't searching for love. She was searching for survival. The bell above the cafe door jingled. Melissa looked up expecting the usual, some average guy in khakis, maybe a wrinkled button-up. Someone Tracy thought was nice. Instead, a tall man walked in wearing a charcoal suit so perfectly tailored it practically whispered expensive. Dark hair with a touch of silver at the temples, sharp jawline, and the quiet confidence of someone who never waited for permission to exist. He surveyed the room. His eyes locked with hers. He walked straight toward her. "Melissa?" His voice had a warm, slightly rough tone. "I'm Christopher Dane. Tracy said you'd be in the corner booth." Melissa forgot how to blink. This was not the recently single, average coworker Tracy described. This was someone who belonged on a business magazine cover, not opposite her in a coffee shop while she looked like a pajama gremlin. "That's me," she managed. "You can sit, or leave. Leaving is totally allowed." Christopher smiled, revealing a dimple that should be illegal. "Why would I leave? I just found the person I was looking for." He slid into the booth, relaxed, confident, ridiculously charming. Tracy had said he was nice. She had neglected to mention dangerously handsome. Then he added, "Your eyes are incredibly expressive." "Tracy didn't tell me that part." Melissa blinked. Twice. "Are you sure you have the right Melissa?" she asked. He listed things only Tracy would know: her job teaching third graders, her love for crime podcasts, her cat named Agatha Christie, and her award-winning chocolate chip cookies. He knew everything, except the part where she was actively sabotaging the date. They ordered drinks. He took black coffee. She mumbled something about a chai latte and instantly regretted sounding fancy. Then Christopher leaned forward. "I have a confession," he said. Here it came. The polite rejection speech. But instead he said something entirely unexpected. "I asked Tracy not to tell you anything about me. Women tend to like my job more than my personality." Melissa frowned. "What do you do?" He waved his hand casually. "Oh, boring consulting stuff. Corporate restructuring, efficiency, financial puzzles, nothing exciting." "Your job sounds far more interesting." She laughed nervously. He seemed genuine. Human. Nothing like the polished exterior suggested. They talked. And talked. Her students. His strange hobbies. Her disasters. His fake mustache dating story. 2 hours disappeared like nothing. When the cafe started closing, she gathered her bag. "I should go. Lesson plans." Christopher stood as well. "Can I see you again? Maybe somewhere you're comfortable being exactly yourself. Though. I like the sweatshirt." The way he said it made her stomach flip. She hesitated, but something in his eyes felt honest. "Okay," she whispered. "But I pay for myself." "Deal." As they walked out, Melissa's phone buzzed with Tracy's message. "Did you scare him off yet?" Melissa almost laughed. If only she knew. What Melissa didn't and couldn't know was that the man she just agreed to see again was far from boring. His consulting firm wasn't small. His name wasn't ordinary. And his life was about to pull her into a world she had never imagined. But Melissa had no idea that Christopher Dane's next phone call, the one he answered right after leaving her, would begin a chain of events that would test her trust, her independence, and her heart. Saturday arrived faster than Melissa expected, and with it came the familiar flutter of nerves she had tried very hard to forget existed. She stood in front of her closet, staring at clothes that suddenly all looked wrong. Her cat, Agatha Christie, a chubby tabby with judgmental green eyes, sat on the bed as if supervising her crisis. "Don't start," Melissa muttered, holding up a navy dress, then discarding it. "I'm allowed to care a little." She had chosen the location this time. The annual used book sale at the public library. Public. Casual. No pressure. Exactly her speed. After 20 minutes of debating sweater colors, she settled on dark jeans, without stains, thank God, and a soft cream sweater Tracy had bought her last Christmas. Her hair was down, actually brushed. Mascara, barely. Lip balm, the fancy kind. Enough effort to show interest. Not enough to panic and run. When she reached the library, Christopher was already there, leaning casually against the railing in jeans and a dark green Henley that made his eyes look warmer somehow. He smiled when he saw her, and his whole face lit up as if someone flipped on the sun. "You came," he said softly, like it mattered. "I said I would," Melissa replied, suddenly aware of her heartbeat. "Also, I never miss this sale. Last year I found a first edition for $3. Highlight of my life. Let's see if we can top that," he said, offering his arm, not demanding, just inviting. She took it. They wandered between tables stacked with colorful spines and forgotten stories. Melissa moved like she was walking through a treasure trove. Christopher watched her as if she were the treasure. He found out she adored mysteries because her grandmother used to read them aloud. She discovered he had a bizarre fascination with historical shipwrecks. He listened when she talked about her students, not politely, but like he was genuinely invested. He made boring business terms sound like adventures. She made playground drama sound like political thrillers. Two worlds that never should have met, somehow clicked. At a table full of old postcards, he picked up one showing a harbor from the 1950s. "My grandfather taught me a rule," he said quietly. "Listen more than you speak. People reveal everything in their silences." Melissa nodded. "My grandmother taught me something similar. She said mystery novels teach you to pay attention to what's missing." Their eyes met. The moment felt real. Then, as they stepped outside with bags full of books, Christopher hesitated. "There's something I haven't told you yet," he said, voice careful. Melissa's chest tightened. "That usually means trouble." He laughed nervously. "Not trouble. Just context." They walked to a small diner nearby, Melissa's favorite kind, the kind with cracked vinyl seats and menus laminated since the 80s. Over burgers and milkshakes, the conversation shifted. "So," Melissa said, trying to sound casual, "Tracy mentioned you're recently single. What happened?" Christopher's expression softened into something tired and private. "Her name was Victoria. We dated for about a year. She was elegant, charming, and she recorded our private conversations." Melissa nearly choked on her milkshake. She did what? Sold them to a tabloid, he said calmly, though his jaw tightened. Nothing illegal. Just personal. Painful. I thought I loved her. Melissa's heart sank. I'm so sorry. He shrugged, but there was vulnerability in his eyes. It made me wary. Made me cautious about who I let in. They fell quiet, both lost in separate wounds. After a moment, Christopher asked gently, "What about you?" "Your ex?" Melissa stared at her fries. "His name was Jeremy," she said. "He stole my savings. Took out credit cards in my name. Left the country with a yoga instructor." Christopher's hand twitched like he wanted to reach for hers. "He didn't. Not yet. He broke more than my bank account," Melissa whispered. "He broke my confidence. My ability to trust myself." "That wasn't your fault," Christopher said firmly. "He lied. You didn't fail." For the first time in a long time, Melissa let herself believe that might be true. Then it happened. He hesitated, took a breath, and finally said the words she would never forget. "Melissa. I wasn't completely honest about my job." Her stomach clenched. "Here we go. I don't just run a consulting firm," he continued. "I own a global corporation. The media calls me a," he winced, "billionaire." Melissa's fries froze halfway to her mouth. "A billionaire?" she repeated. "As in B?" "Unfortunately," he said dryly. The world tilted. Her modest apartment. Her teacher salary. Her thrift store wardrobe. Her entire reality crashed into the truth sitting across from her in a Henley shirt. "I need a minute," she whispered. She rushed to the diner restroom, splashed cold water on her face, and stared at herself, just a teacher with a cat, student loans, and a messy life. What on earth was she doing dating a man with a net worth that probably had its own gravity? She returned slowly, bracing herself for the end. "I'm not good at this," she said honestly. "I don't know how to date someone with jets." "3," he joked weakly. "But I wish I hadn't said that." "I just want normal," she whispered. "Then I'll be normal with you," he said simply. Melissa swallowed, searching his face for arrogance, pity, or superiority. She found none. Just sincerity. "I need slow." "Really slow," she said. "Tell me the speed," Christopher replied, "and I'll match it." Melissa exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't impossible. Outside the diner, as they walked to their cars, Christopher's phone rang. His expression changed instantly, serious, tense. "Sorry," he said. "I have to take this. I'll call you tonight." "Of course." He stepped away, voice sharp and controlled, nothing like the warm man she'd spent the day with. The CEO sighed. The empire-running side. Melissa watched him, suddenly realizing just how big his world truly was. And how small hers felt in comparison. But while Melissa was trying to understand the man she was falling for, she had no idea that the call Christopher answered wasn't business at all, it was a warning from his brother, about her. The next few days passed in a strange blur. Melissa taught her lessons, graded homework, comforted kids who cried over broken crayons, but her mind kept drifting back to the tall man with the gentle eyes and unimaginable wealth. Every time her phone buzzed, her stomach flipped. Christopher texted her regularly, nothing overwhelming, just thoughtful messages that made her smile at random moments. A picture of a messy conference room captioned, "My battlefield today." A voice note saying he tried her cookie recipe and burned the first batch. A short, simple, thinking of you. She wanted to believe this could work. But doubt clung like static. Then everything exploded. It started when Melissa walked out of her apartment building Saturday morning and saw a man with a camera pointed at her. At first she thought he was photographing the building, until he followed her to her car. She panicked and texted Tracy. "Why is there a photographer outside my building?" Tracy replied immediately. "Oh no. Melissa, you're on a gossip blog." Melissa's heart dropped. She sat in her car, palms sweating, as she opened the link Tracy sent. A headline screamed at her. Billionaire Christopher Dane spotted with mystery woman, gold digger or new love? Her photo was plastered beneath it, her leaving school, her walking to her car, her running into a grocery store. Angled shots. Zoomed faces. Stolen moments. It felt like someone had ripped her privacy away and tossed it to wolves. Her phone rang. It was Christopher. "Melissa. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to shut it down. My PR team is handling it, but these sites don't care about truth, they care about clicks." Melissa swallowed. "Christopher, my students' parents might see this. I can't have paparazzi outside my building. I'm just a teacher. I didn't sign up for this." "I know," he said, voice heavy. Maybe it's time you met my family." Melissa froze. "You want me to meet your mother and brother while they think I'm some scheming gold digger?" "I want them to see who you really are. Once they meet you, this noise will fade." She wasn't convinced. She wasn't ready. But she was tired of running. "Okay," she whispered. One dinner. The Dane estate. Nothing could have prepared Melissa for Christopher's home. Calling it a house felt ridiculous. It was a fortress of old money luxury, stone, glass, gardens that looked professionally curated, a circular driveway wide enough to land a helicopter. Melissa gripped her purse tightly. "I can't do this," she whispered as they parked. "Christopher, look at this place. And look at me. I bought this dress on sale at Target." Christopher turned to her gently. "Do you know what I see when I look at you? Someone who shows up honestly. My family, they lost that skill years ago." The door opened before she could respond. A housekeeper greeted them with a warm smile, which somehow made everything less intimidating. But the moment Melissa stepped into the foyer, she felt swallowed whole. The ceiling stretched skyward. The paintings looked like they belonged in museums. Even the floor felt too expensive to step on. Waiting in a polished, formal sitting room was Patricia Dane, Christopher's mother. Patricia stood slowly, examining Melissa with a gaze sharp enough to dissect diamonds. "You must be Melissa," she said, offering a hand with impeccable posture. "Christopher has told us very little." Melissa forced a polite smile. "It's nice to meet you." Before Patricia could respond, another figure entered. Marcus Dane. Younger than Christopher, sharper jaw, colder eyes. His energy filled the room like a storm cloud. "So, this is the teacher," he said, not bothering to hide his judgment. "Interesting choice, Chris." "Marcus," Christopher warned. But dinner had already begun on a sour note. The longest dinner of her life. They ate in a dining room so large Melissa felt like her voice might echo. Patricia asked questions that weren't really questions. "So, Melissa, do your parents work in education as well?" "No," Melissa answered. "My mom's a nurse, and my dad fixes appliances." "I see," Patricia murmured, as if cataloging socioeconomic data. Marcus took a different approach. one that felt more like interrogation. "What exactly attracted you to my brother?" he asked casually. "His personality? His influence? Maybe his resources?" Christopher nearly dropped his fork. "Marcus, stop." But something inside Melissa snapped. She was tired. She was done being polite. She wasn't going to sit quietly while people rewrote her intentions. She put her fork down and looked Marcus dead in the eyes. "What attracted me to Christopher," she said, steady and calm, "was that when we met, I thought he was a normal guy. I showed up looking like I just rolled out of a dumpster, and he still looked at me like I mattered." Silence fell over the room. "I didn't know he was wealthy," she continued. "I didn't know about the company. I didn't know he was practically a walking headline. All I knew was that he listened. He was kind. And he didn't make me feel small." Marcus blinked, clearly not expecting honesty. Patricia tilted her head, intrigued. "And if you think I'm here for his money," Melissa added, "I can assure you my life was much simpler before someone took my picture outside my apartment." Christopher stared at her like he'd never been prouder. Patricia leaned back slowly. "Well," she said, "at least you have some backbone. Better than the last 3 women he brought home." Christopher groaned. "Mother, please." Marcus looked away, jaw clenched, but something in his expression cracked, doubt, maybe guilt. But Melissa wasn't done. "I don't want Christopher's wealth. I don't want his houses or cars. Honestly, this much luxury makes me itchy. I just want him. But if that's not enough for this family, then I can leave." The words hung in the air. Heavy. True. Unshakable. Christopher shot up from his chair. "No," he said firmly. "We're leaving." Patricia opened her mouth, but he didn't let her speak. "Melissa came here because I asked her to. And you," he glared at Marcus, "treated her like a threat instead of a human being." He helped Melissa stand, his hands steady on her back. "When you're ready to treat her with respect," Christopher said coldly, "we'll try this again. Until then, we're done." They walked out. Melissa's pulse raced. Her cheeks burned. But her heart felt oddly steady. Because for once, someone chose her. Outside, in the dim glow of the estate lights, Christopher stopped and looked at her with raw emotion. "Melissa," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." Her breath caught. This was it. The moment everything changed. "I'm falling in love with you," he said, but neither of them knew that Marcus wasn't finished, and his next move would threaten everything they had just begun. Christopher drove away from the estate in silence, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable, but heavy. Melissa watched the lights of the mansion fade in the rearview mirror, her heart still racing from what happened at the dinner table. When they finally pulled into a scenic overlook above the city, Christopher stopped the car. The city lights shimmered below them like a blanket of stars. He turned toward her. His expression wasn't smooth or confident like before. It was unguarded. Vulnerable. "Melissa," he said softly, "I meant it back there. I'm falling in love with you." Time froze. She felt everything inside her tremble, fear, hope, disbelief. "I know it's fast," he continued, "and complicated. But tonight, when you stood up for yourself, for us, I realized I've never met anyone like you. You're not impressed by my money. You're not intimidated by my world. You just see me." Melissa swallowed hard, tears pricking her eyes. This man, this billionaire who could have anything, wanted her. But wanting wasn't the problem. surviving together was. Christopher. I want to believe we can do this, she whispered. But your family hates me. The media hates me. My life is turning into something I can't control. Then let me face it with you, he said. Not for you, with you. Those words hit deeper than any romantic line could. She exhaled shakily. Okay, she said. But I still buy my own pizza. He laughed, a genuine, relieved laugh, and Melissa felt something settle between them. Something real. But while they sat in the quiet warmth of a new love, a far colder truth waited for them. Because Marcus, Christopher's brother, was not finished. 3 days later. Melissa returned to her routine, teaching, grading, trying to pretend the world wasn't peering into her life. But the feeling of being watched didn't fade. And then Marcus called Christopher. The conversation that followed would change everything. Chris, Marcus said, sounding unusually serious, we need to talk. It's about Melissa. Christopher stiffened. If you're going to insult her again. No. Listen. I had her investigated. Christopher's blood ran cold. You what? Before you explode, Marcus rushed, you need to hear what the investigator found. It wasn't what I expected. Christopher's silence was sharp. Her ex, Marcus continued. Jeremy Walters. What he did to her, it's worse than she told you. He didn't just drain her savings. He left her with over $200,000 in debt. Fraud. Loans she never authorized. Credit cards. Everything in her name. Christopher's hand gripped the phone. And she's been paying it off alone, Marcus added. Working extra jobs. Tutoring. Summer school. She hasn't bought anything for herself in years. She's drowning, Chris, and she never once asked you for help. A long pause. Then Christopher whispered something Marcus had never heard from him. She never needed my money. She needed someone to protect her. For what it's worth, Marcus said quietly, I was wrong about her. And I intend to apologize. But Christopher barely heard him. He was already grabbing his keys. He found her at school. Melissa was sitting cross-legged on the classroom floor after hours, surrounded by construction paper, glitter, and spelling tests, eating a peanut butter sandwich for dinner. She looked tired. Small. Alone. Christopher stood in the doorway. You don't have to live like this, he said quietly. Melissa startled. Christopher? What are you doing here? He stepped inside, holding something inside him with visible effort. Marcus told me about Jeremy. About the debt. About what you've been carrying. Melissa froze. Then the anger came. Your brother investigated me, she said sharply. Are you kidding? I didn't ask him to, Christopher said quickly. But when he told me, Melissa, $200,000? Why didn't you tell me? Her eyes flashed with hurt and pride. Because it's my problem, she said, standing. Christopher, I spent years rebuilding after Jeremy. My credit. My confidence. My whole life. I'm not letting someone swoop in and fix it for me. What if I wasn't trying to fix it, he asked softly. What if I just wanted to help lighten the weight? That's the same thing, she shot back. When you can solve problems with a single check, you forget how important it is for the rest of us to fix things ourselves. Christopher's chest tightened. He understood now, she wasn't angry at him. She was terrified of losing herself. "Melissa," he said gently, "I hear you. I was wrong. I'm sorry." She rubbed her forehead, overwhelmed. "I just need space," she whispered. "To breathe. To think." "Okay," he said, hurt but accepting. "I won't push. When you're ready, I'm here. No expectations. Just me." She nodded, but her eyes were full of conflict. Christopher left the classroom knowing she needed time. He just prayed she wouldn't decide he wasn't worth the fight. 2 weeks later. Melissa tried to move forward. Christopher tried to give her space. But they were both miserable. It was Tracy, bold, loud, loyal Tracy, who finally stepped in. She cornered Melissa near the copy machine at school. "You're suffering," she said bluntly. "He's suffering. All because you're scared." "I'm not scared," Melissa whispered. Tracy arched an eyebrow. "Then what are you waiting for? Permission? A sign from the universe?" Melissa hesitated. "I just need proof this won't swallow me whole." "Melissa," Tracy said, squeezing her hand, "you didn't lose yourself. You confronted his family. You told off a billionaire. You are the most grounded person I know. The question isn't whether you fit into his world, it's whether he's worth building a new one with." That was the push Melissa needed. That night, she drove to Christopher's house. Nerves buzzing. Heart racing. She rang the doorbell. He opened it wearing sweatpants, an old t-shirt, and the tired eyes of someone who hadn't slept well in days. "Christopher," she said softly, "I've been thinking." He held his breath. "About us. About what it means to be together when our lives look nothing alike." She stepped closer. "I realized something. You never asked me to change. You loved me in a sweatshirt. You defended me when no one else would. You respected my boundaries even when they hurt." His eyes softened. "Melissa." She gently touched his hand. "I don't need a savior. I don't want a paycheck. But maybe I could use a partner. Someone who stands beside me while I fight my battles." He swallowed, hope rising like a sunrise inside him. "I can do that," he whispered. "And no more investigations," she added firmly. "No more controlling the narrative. No more trying to predict what other people think. We live our lives. The rest can catch up." Christopher nodded. "Deal." She smiled. And for the first time in years, Melissa stepped forward without fear. 6 months later, Christopher would be on one knee in her classroom, but what he said before he proposed would change their future forever. 6 months later, Melissa Hart's classroom looked like an explosion of construction paper and glitter, standard territory for an elementary school teacher. Sunlight streamed across tiny desks, hand-painted posters, and the crooked reminder board that forever leaned 2 inches to the left. It was after school on a Thursday, the kind of quiet afternoon where only the soft hum of fluorescent lights kept her company. Melissa was erasing a whiteboard doodle one of her students had left behind when she heard footsteps in the hallway. She assumed it was another teacher. But when she looked up, Christopher stood in the doorway. Her breath hitched. He wasn't dressed like the billionaire CEO tonight. No suit. No polished shoes. Just a soft sweater, slightly wrinkled, and jeans that made him look like he belonged in a cozy bookstore. In his hand, something small. A box. Melissa froze. "Christopher?" she whispered. He smiled, but it wasn't the charming, confident smile he wore in public. This one trembled slightly, laced with nerves. "I've been waiting for the right moment," he said, stepping into the classroom. "And then I realized, the right moment isn't somewhere fancy. It's here. With you. In the place that holds your heart every single day." Her heartbeat thudded in her ears. Christopher walked between the little chairs, stopping right in front of her. Then he took a slow breath. "There's something I need to tell you before I ask what I came here to ask." Her stomach tightened. Words like "before I ask" carried weight. "Melissa, you changed my life," he began. "Not because you challenged my family, or stood up to the media, or forced me to rethink everything I thought I knew. Though you did all of that." He reached out and took her hand gently. "You changed my life because you showed me that love means being better, for someone else and for yourself. You taught me that money isn't the point of life. Character is." Melissa's eyes stung. "Christopher." "Let me finish," he said softly, squeezing her hand. "I wanted to help you after what Jeremy did. I wanted to erase your debt, fix everything, snap my fingers and give you a clean slate. But that wasn't what you needed. You needed to rebuild your life on your own terms. Your strength humbled me, Melissa. It inspired me." He pulled in a breath as if revealing a secret. "So, I started a foundation." Melissa blinked. "A foundation?" "In your name," Christopher said. "A nonprofit that helps teachers who've been victims of fraud or financial abuse. It pays for legal support, credit repair, and emergency relief. And it's already helping people." Melissa's mouth parted, stunned. "Christopher." I never asked." "I know," he said gently. "That's why I did it. Not to save you. But because your story showed me a problem I could help fix for others." Her chest tightened with emotion. The idea of her pain becoming someone else's hope, it was overwhelming. "You'd oversee it," he added. "No salary unless you want one. Just purpose. Just impact." Melissa touched her chest, tears slipping down. How could you think of something so?" "Because I love you," Christopher whispered. Her breath caught sharply. He slowly lowered himself onto one knee between tiny desks decorated with stickers and glitter glue. He opened the small box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, nothing flashy. A delicate band with a small diamond that sparkled only when light touched it. The opposite of everything she feared wealth would bring. "Melissa Hart," he said, voice steady but thick with emotion, "will you marry me? Not because you need security. Not because of my world or my resources. But because you make my life fuller than any success ever has." Tears blurred her vision. "Christopher," she whispered, shaking. "Yes. Yes, of course I will." He stood, she wrapped her arms around him, and for a moment the whole world felt small and safe, just the two of them in a classroom built for 8-year-olds. When they finally pulled apart, Melissa laughed through tears. "But I'm keeping my apartment," she said. "I need to remember where I came from." Christopher laughed softly. "Deal. Though your cat has already declared my house her kingdom." At the mention of Agatha Christie, Melissa groaned. "Oh no. What did she do now?" Christopher cleared his throat. "Well, she refuses to sleep anywhere but the master bedroom." Melissa snorted. "Of course she does." They hugged again, joy flooding the dusty little classroom. Everything felt perfect. Stable. Hopeful. Full of promise. But life wasn't finished testing them. And the next challenge was one Melissa couldn't prepare for, not with bravery, not with boundaries, not even with Christopher's support. Because while love had healed their wounds, someone from Christopher's past was about to reopen them. On the night they announced their engagement, a familiar name resurfaced, one that threatened to undo everything they had built together. The night of their engagement announcement felt like something lifted from a dream. A small gathering, nothing extravagant, just close friends, Tracy's loud joy, Patricia's surprisingly warm smile, and even Marcus behaving like a civilized human being. Christopher kept his arm around Melissa almost the entire evening, as if he still couldn't believe she had said yes. But that peaceful celebration didn't last long. Near the end of the night, Tracy hurried over holding her phone with an expression Melissa had learned to fear. "Don't freak out," Tracy said, which of course made Melissa immediately freak out. "What happened?" Melissa whispered. Tracy angled the screen toward her. A breaking headline flashed across a gossip site. Christopher Dane engaged, ex-girlfriend Victoria breaks silence. Claims new fiancé hid dark past. Melissa's stomach dropped so hard she nearly lost her balance. Victoria. The woman who'd betrayed Christopher so deeply. The woman who only cared about fame and access. She was back. And she was talking. Christopher saw Melissa's face pale and moved quickly to her side. "What is it?" he asked. She handed him the phone. His jaw tightened instantly, anger flickering in his eyes. "Of course she'd do this," he muttered. "I should have known she wouldn't let us be happy without trying to twist the narrative." Melissa steadied her breath. "What exactly did she say?" Christopher scrolled, his face hardening. "She claims," he said slowly, "that you manipulated me. That you crafted a sob story to pull me in. That your ex wasn't real. That you're pretending to be modest so you can marry into wealth." Melissa felt sick. "I knew this would happen," she whispered. "I knew the moment I stepped into your world, it would swallow mine." Christopher cupped her face gently, grounding her. "No. Listen to me. She's doing this to hurt me, not because she knows anything true about you. You have done nothing wrong. Nothing." Before she could respond, Marcus appeared, face red with fury. "I've already contacted legal," he said. "She's crossed a line. Defamation, harassment, everything. We're going after her." Melissa stepped back, shaken. "This is exactly what I didn't want," she said quietly. "I don't want lawsuits. I don't want battles. I just want normal." Christopher pulled her close. "We'll get our normal," he promised. "But first, we stand together." And they did. For the next week, the world seemed determined to test them. Reporters appeared near the school again. Gossip sites reprinted Victoria's interview. Random strangers speculated online about Melissa's motives. But something had changed. Melissa didn't shrink this time. Christopher didn't try to shield her like she was fragile. They faced it side by side. Tracy fought trolls with the energy of a woman defending her life's greatest matchmaking achievement. Patricia, surprisingly, issued a public statement praising Melissa's character and calling Victoria a bitter relic of poor judgment. Marcus personally visited Melissa to apologize, properly, sincerely, and promised to protect her reputation like family. And slowly, the noise died. The story shifted. Reporters grew bored. The public moved on. And Victoria, facing legal pressure and public backlash, faded from the spotlight once again. When Melissa and Christopher finally sat together on their couch one quiet Friday night, eating pizza and listening to a murder podcast, she leaned into him with a tired sigh. "I didn't think we'd survive all that," she admitted. Neither did I, he said honestly. But love, real love, doesn't collapse under pressure. It gets stronger. She smiled. Are you getting poetic on me? Maybe a little, he said, kissing her forehead. You bring it out in me. Melissa traced circles on his arm, her heart full. You know, she said, if someone had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting here engaged to a billionaire, running a foundation, and dodging paparazzi, I would have assumed they were drunk. Christopher laughed. And if someone had told me I'd meet a woman in a ratty sweatshirt who'd flip my entire world upside down, I would have offered them therapy. They laughed together, soft and warm in the dim glow of their living room. And in that peaceful quiet, after everything they'd overcome, Melissa realized something that made her eyes sting. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of losing herself. Not of being hurt. Not of his family or the press or the enormous difference in their worlds. Because love wasn't changing her. It was rooting her. Anchoring her. Strengthening her. She had built her life again from the ashes of betrayal. And now she was building a future, with someone who saw her scars not as weaknesses but as proof of her strength. Melissa looked over at Christopher. Hey, she whispered. I love you too. He smiled like he was hearing it for the first time. I know, he whispered back. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. They leaned into each other as the podcast narrator dramatically announced a plot twist involving a missing spoon. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't extravagant. It wasn't the billionaire lifestyle people imagined. It was better. It was theirs.